Welcome back. The House today expected to vote again on landmark cryptocurrency bills after failing to advance them to the debate stage yesterday. President Trump met with a number of holdouts last night, telling Truth Social and writing this: after a short discussion, they have all agreed to vote tomorrow morning in favor of the rule. Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, was at the meeting via telephone and looks forward to taking the vote as early as possible. The Clarity Act, the Genius Act, and the Anti-Central Bank Digital Currency Surveillance State Act all aim to create a more structured and transparent digital market. Joining me now is South Carolina Senator Tim Scott. He is chairman of the Senate Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs Committee. Mr. Chairman, great to see you this morning. Thank you so much for being here.
Good morning, Maria. Thanks for having me.
I want to get your take on what's going on in the House and why the House does not want to see these bills tied to what the Senate has put out.
Well, let's first start with the fact that President Trump might be the greatest closer in American history. He keeps pulling rabbits out the hat. It is fantastic. And why is it so important? This is going to be the crypto capital of the world. America will be the crypto capital of the world, which means prices will go down, access will go up. This is important for us to get both the Genius Act and Clarity done, because first, Genius Act is the first step forward in this new crypto capital. The second piece, market structure, has to happen, and our guiding principles coming forward by the end of this week.
Yeah, I mean, one holdout appears to be that the Senate stablecoin legislation, the bill, does not include a ban on the Federal Reserve issuing a central bank cryptocurrency. The House included that in their version. Now, we don't expect the Federal Reserve to move to actually issue a digital dollar. But what about that? People are worried about the Federal Reserve coming out with this central bank cryptocurrency and using it as a surveillance tool like China does.
Yes. One of the things that we said in Genius Act, and we have to give a lot of credit to Bill Hagerty on working on this legislation. The Genius Act simply says that nothing in this bill actually expands the authority at the Federal Reserve. So they do not have expansive authority. They cannot go in that direction. So we wanted to make sure that it was crystal clear. The House wants to double down and do it again. I get that. That's not a bad move at all. But let's be clear. The Genius Act already speaks to not allowing the Federal Reserve to expand their authority. And finally, let me just say this, Maria. The Federal Reserve, they should get back to calling balls and strikes and doing their job as an umpire. Watching the Fed be politicized under President Biden and then, frankly, stepping away from all things common sense like lowering interest rates under President Trump, they should get back to doing their jobs. I
mean, what about this idea that you can combine these bills? Some conservatives want the stablecoin legislation to be married to the Clarity Act out of the House. How much difficulty would that create in the Senate to get these passed if they're married?
Well, Maria, yeah, marriage is a good thing. I just did it about a year ago. But one of the things we don't want to do is have a marriage in the Senate, between the Clarity Act and the Genius Act, because the person presiding over that wedding would be Elizabeth Warren. I can't imagine a worse situation in all of politics than having Elizabeth Warren be the person presiding over the Clarity Act and the Genius Act coming together. Therefore, taking market structure, the Clarity Act, taking it in a silo, and letting it be the foundation of what we get accomplished for market structure is the fastest path to the crypto capital of the world being America. Getting Genius Act signed into law, hopefully by the end of this week, is a first step, a serious step that tells the market we can get the job done. President Trump's leadership is absolutely necessary, and we're seeing why the American people, this working class coalition, made him president. It is really good news for the American people, and frankly, it actually helps to keep the reserve currency of the world, the U.S. dollar.
Yeah, it's a great point, because the stablecoin legislation is backed by the dollar. There's also that sort of embedded expectation that it's also increasing demand for treasuries, right?
You got it. Maria, that's why everybody says you're so smart. That is exactly what I was trying to say. You just said it better. I'm not even going to try to repeat it. You're 100% right.
Okay. Do you have any plans to introduce any other market structure legislation? We've been talking about the idea that the SEC and the CFTC are two overseers, and people aren't sure who's going to oversee what.
Yeah, that's exactly why our discussion draft that comes out by the end of this week is so critically important. It gives the market an opportunity to take a look, allows members to take a look, and frankly, we've been working hand in glove with the White House as well as the House. I met yesterday with Speaker Johnson. We're all on the same page. The foundation of our market structure is the Clarity Act. Good news. This is showing the American people that the Republican Party under President Trump, we can lead to the best future possible. But absolutely, if you think about the highways coming forward, you have one highway, which is the SEC. The other highway is the CFTC. The question is, how do we determine what assets go in which direction?
Yeah.
The market structure legislation is the way we get that done.
So, I mean, one is going to oversee securities. One is supposed to be overseeing commodities. Do we need all those highways? I mean, I just spoke with the president of Circle, who, of course, is the largest stablecoin issuer. And I asked him the question about a potential merger. Watch what he said. Listen to this, Senator. I had Paul Atkins here, and we talked about the regulatory framework, and I wonder if you would support a merger of the SEC and the CFTC. Should the SEC acquire the CFTC?
Or perhaps the other way around. Many market participants would say that. Look, I think there are more important things to do than to worry about the government. Possibly down the road, but I think at this point in time, getting the law right for the industry, getting the law right for the American people is more important than sort of Washington housekeeping.
Well, Senator, is that something that you would support, the CFTC acquiring the SEC, merging them so that it's not this, unknown who's doing what?
Well, Maria, I think the most important question is history. Unfortunately, this is a history question because under Gary Gensler at the SEC, he weaponized the power of the government against the crypto universe as we know it. CFTC, they were more positive and kind towards the industry. They frankly were just doing their job. And so the question is, can we not put in place rules of the road that will impact both the SEC and the CFTC and not allow a weaponization of any of the government agencies against people they don't like or industry they don't like? That's exactly what happened under President Biden. He weaponized everything from the Department of Justice against President Trump to SEC and the CFTC to a lesser extent against the cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
This is why, as chairman of the banking committee, I focus my attention on being agnostic. We don't want government picking winners and losers. We want the market to pick winners and losers.
Yeah, it's a great point. And thank you for getting into the weeds with us on that, because I know some of this is a little wonky.
Of course.
But as your role in terms of oversight, in terms of the banking sector, I want to get your take on capital rules and how the regulatory framework should change for the banking sector. In your view, you've got a little more balance now on the Fed with Mickey Bowman there as the governor. But of course, you know what the Federal Reserve has been doing. Your thoughts on oversight of the banking sector?
Yeah, let me just break it down into two big categories. Number one, thank God Mickey Bowman is now the vice chairman of supervision. She's doing a much better job than her predecessor. That's number one. Number two, what is she doing? Well, Basel III was the proposal set aside to determine the amount of capital that needed to be put on the sidelines. We've already have enough capital on the sidelines, which means that fewer people can become a homeowner, and fewer people can start a small business. By making sure that the market meets the moment and that our institutions are safe, but that the level of capital on the sideline is not oppressive, allows for businesses to continue to boom, folks to become homeowners, fulfilling their desire to live the American dream. That means that the Basel III needed to be thrown out. It has been thrown out.
Yeah.
And it needs to be reintroduced. It will be reintroduced. That will help us determine how our financial institutions have the appropriate level of capital.
Yeah.
So this is a good start. And then there's another step towards the major financial institutions that is actually being looked at right now by the Fed.
What's the other one?
Well, it's what they're basically doing is looking at the larger banks and determining the capital requirements there as well. What we really want to do is to bifurcate this conversation from my perspective. Community banks are where you find greatest access for capital for small business owners.
Oh, great
in
point.
order for us to make sure that they are not burdened by the larger institutions in the same level of prudential standards. The only way to do that is to bifurcate our institutions as from a regulatory standpoint. Under President Biden, there was just this oppressive force, not just on our GSIBs or our largest banks, but all the way down to our community banks and our credit unions.
In order
for us to eliminate that, we need to separate the two institutions and make sure that if you're not actually going to have a negative impact on our economy, a bank of $10 billion, $5 billion, they don't move. They don't even create a wave.
Yeah.
We need to be right where we are, looking at the major institutions. Basel III, repropose, good news. Let's leave our community banks alone. Better news.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, obviously, a community bank is not going to have the same issues that a J.P. Morgan is going to have with all the assets that they are overseeing. Senator, it's great to talk with you this morning. Thanks so much for explaining all of that with us. We appreciate your time.
Let's do it again, Maria. God bless.
Senator Tim Scott. We'll be right back.